This is the second video on my top tips for buying a business. The first 5 tips I shared in this video here, and in this current video I'm going to share an additional 5 with you. Make sure you watch both videos before you think about buying a business or before you think about putting an offer for the next business. In this video I'm going to share 5 tips for you for buying a business. I shared 5 previously. If you click on this video here, you'll be able to see those 5 tips. Those 5 plus these 5 will give you a good starting point. And I'll very quickly cover the 5 that I covered in the first video. Number 1 was goals. Number 2 was knowing your limits. Number 3 was knowing how you're going to finance the purchase. Number 4 was knowing the seller's motives for selling. And number 5 was having an understanding of the industry. And so number 6 or number 1, depending on whether you've seen the video or not, is having a good understanding of how the business works and how it performs. Have a look at whether the business has been meeting its previous targets. Obviously you'll need that information from the seller. Look at the margins, look at the costs, look at the overheads, look at the net profit, return on investment, return on your capital employed and the existing capital employed. And ideally, I would always do this, and I think you should as well, benchmark the business against competitors in its region, so you can get a good handle for where it's operating well, where it isn't operating well. The benchmarking software that I use looks at 21 different indicators, and there's quite a few different software available out there for you which will benchmark. So that benchmarking plus overall performance of the business, looking at the numbers, both the balance sheet and more importantly of course for the overheads and profitability, you want the profit and loss account, and the balance sheet obviously is the ongoing numbers in terms of the assets, debtors, creditors, liabilities. So that's going to assist you with the business performance, and that's a very crucial thing to do. Of course, then you can forecast in the future, look at the next 12, 24, 36 months, and you go longer and deeper into the future depending on how big the business is. The bigger the business, the bigger the transaction, the more into the future you'd go. The smaller the business, the less in the future you'd go. So you might, if you're buying a business for 100 grand, you might look at the next 12 months, for example. Number 7 is look at how the business operates. Is it efficient? Does it have systems and processes? Does it rely on the business owner, or does it rely on other people? Does it rely mainly on people, or does it mainly rely on process? Look at all of those things very carefully. A business which is fully systematized and is process dependent is worth more to you and to the seller in terms of sale price than one that just relies mainly on the owner. Because obviously if you're buying the business from the existing owner and they are then going to exit, well, the business isn't going to work too well without them. So look at the different systems and processes, and this is a good negotiation or negotiating tip for you. If it's heavily dependent on the business owner, it's not worth much. So you could then have a very good negotiation in terms of paying a lower value, but also keeping the existing owner there for the next 12 months, for example, and get them to help you to systemize it. So bear that one in mind. Number 8, look at all the assets. If the business owns physical property, make sure that obviously your lawyer will do this for you. But looking at the title register, making sure everything's clean. If they've got equipment, making sure you've got a full list of an inventory of all the different equipment, how old it is, when it needs to be replaced. If there's intellectual property or patents or trademarks, make sure you get them checked out. If the business has a USP, check out the USP, make sure it's a real USP and it gives them an advantage. So it's important to know all of the assets that you're buying, and at the same time, if you're buying the shares in a business, and I've got a separate video for you on the different ways to buy a business. One of them is obviously share purchase. Then make sure you have clear lines in terms of what's going to remain in the business, in terms of the bank balance, the debtors, the creditors, the assets, all of that. So when you buy the business, those things should remain in there, including also how much money the existing owner can take in terms of dividends. Because last thing you want is, if there's 200 grand in the bank account, you're buying the business for X amount, and you're thinking 200 grand will stay in there, and a week before you exchange and complete, the previous owner takes out the 200 grand as a dividend. That's not going to be very good for you. So agree those up front. With that, if there's a lease, I would ask for that up front. Review it early. Look at the break clauses. Look at when the rent reviews are due. Look at anything else which is a limiting factor, or anything which might cause an obstruction for you, and at the same time make sure that it's a release which is as long as it can be. If it's about to expire, then obviously get the existing owner to get a new lease for you. But knowing all that up front is going to help, because obviously if you've got to extend or renew the lease, you're going to have to pay the legal fees for the landlord as well. So you want to bear that in mind. Number 9, be aware of all the different liabilities that the business has, and make sure you're going into it with your eyes open. Because again, if you're buying the shares and you don't do all your proper due diligence, and there's unknown liabilities for which you don't have any warranties, you're going to have to pay them through the company. You're not going to be happy with that. Number 10, be very clear on your plan. This is going to help you again in negotiating, because when you're buying from the owner, they'll be interested, or the seller, they'll be interested to know what your plan is, how you're going to keep the business running, because obviously they've got emotional attachment to the business. It could be something that they started themselves 20 years ago and they wanted to obviously continue and prosper, and they're obviously also concerned about their customers or clients and patients, and also their team members or staff members. So they want you to share with them how you're going to run and maintain the business. So have a very clear plan and idea of how you're going to do that, and the more clarity you have on that, the more likely it is that the seller might prefer you to somebody else, even though you offer less in terms of the purchase price for the business. So those are the 5 tips. The other 5 are in the video up here. If you have any questions, post in the comments below. If you like the video, click like, or if you like the content, click like, so I know that this is the type of content you want. And please subscribe to this channel so that you can get updates on regular videos.